And it's Pokemon Go all day, all day. What? It's Pokemon Go all day, all day.
Hey everyone, it's Looney, and today I'm going to be explaining how to create a gym using Pokemon Go. So there's basically two things that you need to do, and number one is understand what is eligible for a Pokestop nomination and what isn't. So in order to understand that, we're going to go over some of the things that are eligible and what isn't eligible. Okay, so the first thing you'll be able to access when you go to the Niantic Wayfarer website as a level 40 trainer, you'll be able to access the training module and the description of what makes a good waste spot. So just take a look at this carefully, and I don't really want to go through all the details, but you do have to understand what is eligible for a waste spot and what isn't. So a location with a cool story, a cool place of art or unique architecture, and a hidden gym or hyper-local spot where people might not know if they're visiting in town, but since you live there, you happen to know where that place is, such as here in Carson, the waterfalls over on at the end of West King Street. So that would probably be considered a hidden gym or hyper-local spot. So there's certain things that are automatically eligible to become a Pokestop, and those things are parks, libraries, and churches or places of worship, and transit stations. Transit stations being the place where, for example, all the buses at the bus station downtown, where all the buses go through there, so that's a transit station, because you can't make every individual bus stop in your city, unfortunately, a Pokestop. So things that would make low quality nominations, or things that would be unlikely to get approved, would be any locations that are on the grounds of a primary, secondary, or high school, or daycare, or childcare center. So it can't be on an elementary school, or a middle school, or a high school. But it can be on a college property. Residential property is not eligible. Fire stations, police stations, hospitals, or military bases, industrial sites, any of those are not eligible if it blocks that business from performing their activities, such as emergency vehicles exiting the hospital driveway or something like that. So there's basically going to be a lot of more information on what makes a good picture for submitting the Pokestop nomination and things like that. So basically just review all of it before you take the test. Alright, you guys, so this is where things get a little bit tricky. I'm going to ask you guys to download these apps or open a browser on your phone. If you're doing all this on your phone like I did, then open these browsers, because you're going to need them to understand the next part. So the next part is understanding what S2 cells are. So you're going to need to download the app called PixArt. It's a photo editing app, and I'll show you why it's needed in a little bit. And the other browsers that you're going to need to open are the Niantic Ingress Intel map. So I will be providing all the websites links for this in the description of this video, so go ahead and open that up. And depending on whether or not it lets you access the map, you may have to create an account with the Niantic Ingress app, which is the first game that Niantic created. So go ahead and download that app and create an account while you're at it. And the other website you're going to have to open is pogomap.info. So go ahead and open that. You might as well open that while I talk about this next part, just so that you can understand what you're looking at. So if you open up pogomap.info and go to the settings, you'll see where it says S2 cells, and you'll have an option to put in two different sizes. You're going to put in size 14 and 17. It took me a while to figure that out, like, to understand that. But S2 cells, anytime I say S2 cells, I'm talking about squares. So the squares come in different sizes, and we're focusing on size 14 and size 17. So Niantic has these rules where there cannot be more than one gym or Pokestop within the small red squares, which those are the size 17 S2 cells. So make sure that you're submitting a nomination that is not already in the same small red square as another Pokestop or gym that already exists. And by the way, it's important to know that not all Pokestops and gyms will show up on this website. You do have to manually put them in. There was no Pokestops and gyms when I first opened this this year, so I had to manually add them, and make sure that you add them very accurately because it really does matter where they're at. It has to match the same location that is shown for the portals on the Ingress Intel map, which is the other app or website that you have to open. So they have to match. So the bigger blue outlined squares are the size 14 cells. As 2 cells. And the rule with that is there's a certain amount of increments that determine how many gems will be in that blue square. So whenever there is 2 Pokestops, one of them will become a gem, the one that was put in first. So the oldest Pokestop in that big blue square will become a gem. The next increment is 6. So once you add a 6th Pokestop and it gets approved, the oldest Pokestop that's not already a gem will become a gem. So then you'll have 2 gems because of 6 Pokestops that were added. Alright, so real quick, I didn't explain why you needed to use PixArt, but there is another way where you can just see the Ingress Intel map with the lines, the squares, all of that as an overlay plugin for the Ingress Intel map. But I am not going to show you guys that because it risks violating the terms of service from Niantic. So I'm not going to show you guys that way. That's why I'm using PixArt, because that's the safe way to do it without violating any terms of service. So basically what I did was I went into the pogomap.info website here, and I was able to see once I put in all the gems in the Pokestops, and once again, you don't have to do it, but if you do, make sure it's in accurate locations. And right here, where in the middle of the screen on the corner, upper right corner of that blue center square, if you tap on that, it actually tells you how many gems and Pokestops are in that big blue square cell. So it says that there's 2 gems and 4 Pokestops, which is true now. Now there's 2 gems because I added a Pokestop, and so one of them was converted into a gem. But in order for me to make sure where that line, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Since there was already so many Pokestops in that area, dang it, hold on. I needed to make sure where this line was exactly. So what I did was I took a snapshot of this, and then I went into the Ingress Intel map. And I looked at the same area. So this is Mills Park right here. And the reason I looked at the Ingress Intel map is because it has all the Pokestops and gyms. See how, so like this one. Just to make sure that I did mark all the Pokestops and gyms. So once I did this, because these spots right here are accurate, unlike pogomap.info where you put in the location, it may not be the most accurate location, but this map is. So what I did was I used PixArt. So you tap on that plus sign, and then I'm selecting the snapshot that I just took. And then I'm going to slide over and go to add photo, and I'm going to add the other snapshot I just took. Then I'm going to make this the same size, and notice that this little bar here, it makes it less transparent or transparent. And what I did was I lined up the streets. So Robinson Street and Solomon right there. So there, that's accurate. So then I went halfway. So I could still see the big blue square. And I was able to tell that this gym was not in this big blue square. So then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now there's 7 way spots in that blue square, but that was before I added the 6th pokestop. And somebody else also added this pokestop over here. So let's pretend that that one wasn't even there, because it wasn't when before I submitted the pokestop that I did. So then that means that there was only 5 pokestops. Well, technically there was 4 pokestops and 1 gym, but they're all called way spots. So there was 5 way spots in the big blue square. So I knew that I only needed to add 1 more pokestop that happened to fall within that big blue square in order for the oldest pokestop to become a gym. Alright, so here's what it looks like to take the test. It basically gives you examples of submitted pokestop nominations and asks you to approve it or disapprove it or rate it. So in doing so, I had to check the location and confirm that it was a real place, and either approve or deny it. So that's basically what the whole test is. And it's 10 questions total, or examples total. Maybe they're real, I don't know. That's about it, and that's how it looks when you pass. Okay, so yeah, in summary, you have to be a level 40 trainer. You have to make sure that it's an eligible weight spot according to the Niantic's criteria. And if you really want a gym, you have to count how many Pokestops and gyms already exist within the S2 cell size 14 by checking pogomap.info and checking the portals on the Ingress and Tel map online. So remember that I will put a chart up here to remind you of how many Pokestops or Pokestops/gyms you need in order for a Pokestop to be converted into a gym. So it's 2, 6, 20, and 35, just so you know, if you want me to say it. But yeah, if you guys know of any place here in Carson City that isn't already a Pokestop or a gym and you think it's eligible but you're not a level 40 trainer, then go ahead and shoot me a message and I'll see if I can submit it for you. That's it. I hope you guys have enough information, so good luck to you all.